Welcome to the Equip Podcast. Here you'll find conversations from people of all different walks of life, sharing their experiences, the things the Lord has taught them, and things to equip you. Equip is based on Ephesians 4:11-13 that talks about equipping God's people for works of service so that the body of Christ may be built up. That is our goal here, to build you up and equip you through seasons of ups and downs in life. Welcome back to the Equip Podcast. I'm your host, Taylor Gibson, and today we're joined by our newest women's ministry team member, Stevie Watson. Stevie has been married to Grant for 5 years, and she has 4 kids Earthside. She's got Lily, Sloan, Charlie, and Rooster, and you're going to have to share the story on how Rooster got his name. But today, Stevie's going to be sharing about some of the loss of her babies through pregnancy loss and stillbirth and how she found hope in Jesus. So welcome, Stevie. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Well, to begin our conversation, will you tell us about when you first met Jesus?
Over the week, I've actually been thinking about this. I was like, man, when was that? My mom moved us to Arkansas against my own will, but I was only in 3rd grade.
You were a Texas girl.
Yes, I am a Texas girl. And we went to a church called Rayburn Creek, and I was baptized there in a creek, which I thought, I always think is so cool. But as I have grown older, I realized that's not where I really met Jesus. I had a lifestyle, obviously, that was crazy and wild, and went through it. And I actually met Jesus for the first time, not on like my own family's time, but like my own time, about 3 years ago in my closet, when my marriage was in trouble, you know? And it's actually one of my favorite stories because it's just so much grace and so much love, but also a lot of healing. And which led me to finally be healed from losing my daughter. So it's really cool.
That is really cool. And I think you bring up a really important point that has nothing to do with our conversation, really. But so often we have these stories of like, I was baptized as a kid, or I grown up knowing Jesus, and I've known Jesus my whole life or whatever. But really, there has to be a moment in every believer's life of, this is the moment that I chose Jesus. It's going to be Lord of my life forever. I mean, it's like a marriage. You don't just say, oh, well, we've been married my whole life. Yeah. No, like there was a moment you signed the papers, you said, I do, whatever. And you became married that day. And so I think that's the same with our relationship with Jesus, of having that important defining moment of, this is the moment that I decided he's my only one. And I think it's cool that you can recognize like that was later. That wasn't necessarily when I was a kid.
Right. And he freed me from depression, anxiety, postpartum depression. I mean, just all things. I mean, and it wasn't a matter of seconds. It was a long time. And it was a long time of him rewiring my brain to not think this way, you know? And it will always be forever my favorite story.
Oh, so, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Well, tell us about your first pregnancy and birth.
Look, I'm already going to cry. So my first pregnancy, I got married really young at 19. And at first I struggled to get pregnant. And then I finally had gotten pregnant, and I had an ectopic pregnancy. Being so young, you don't really know what that is. And I had no idea. But it is a tubal pregnancy where the egg is developing in your tube and not in your uterus. And so I didn't really know what that entailed, and it was really scary. And we were living in Waco at the time, so I was in a very different place that I've never been. But I actually had to have like a shot of chemo to be able to not have my tube rupture. And that was scary because I didn't know, am I supposed to say yes to this? Am I not? And the explanation wasn't very clear. It was just like, hey, your life's in risk. You need to do this.
And how old are you at this point?
I was 19.
Okay.
I remember it was like over New Year's when it happened. And it was the first sign of, okay, maybe this is not going to be as easy as you think. And then finally I was okay. And after lots of blood taken, I was okay. So that went well, but it was hard.
Yeah.
It was really hard.
So then what was the next pregnancy like?
So my next pregnancy, I was pregnant, terrified, so terrified that I really held off on figuring out the sex. I really held off on picking her name. I was still pretty young. My first pregnancy was at 19. I was 21 when I got pregnant with Aria. I remember the day that they told me the sex, and it was a girl, and I always wanted a little girl, and always thought that that's all I would ever have is a little girl. I didn't tell anybody for a long time, and then when we finally picked out her name, it was so perfect. Her name was Aria Grace, and my mom was like, her middle names needs to be Grace because of God's grace, and so I thought it was beautiful. My pregnancy went great. I had no complications or anything except for gaining a ton of weight. That first pregnancy really gets you.
Yeah, it does.
And so, and I had midwives in Waco, and I had a connect group of midwives, all the first-time moms come together, and it was just so beautiful. And they really supported me. And, I also did hypno babies during it because I was bound and determined to have a pregnancy and a birth that was unmedicated because I knew I could do it. So many women have done it, I can do this. And so weeks went on, 37 weeks we went in, and we had a non-stress test, and she was great, still in there. 40 weeks came, still in there. And at this point, I was so big that I couldn't even walk. Like, she was so big, and I couldn't even believe it. And then on February 4th of 2013, we went in for a non-stress test, and they just monitor you and everything. And they were like, she is so perfect. She is so good. Like, she's doing great. Like, it's such a defining moment in her pregnancy that I have like a freckle on my belly. And she was like, have you always had that? And I was like, that is a weird question to ask me. And I was so worried about Aria. Like, I wasn't worried about this freckle. And, but we heard her heartbeat, and we have a video of it still. And then, and at that point I was 41 weeks. The next day was the 5th. And I remember I had just gotten I'd finally went to iPhone. The verse that I'd loaded something from Pinterest for the back of my screen. The Lord will fight for you. You only need to be still. And I didn't know that that would carry me through a lot. So on February 5th, that morning I woke up and I had breakfast and everything. And I remember not feeling her. And I was like, this is so weird. She's so big. And when I say big, like huge, when I tell you her weight, you'll understand. And I called her dad, and I was like, hey, I just feel like something's not right, like she's not moving. And he's like, no, I think, you're just in your head, go have a Coke, and because caffeine will get her moving. And I did. And then I had a bath because I was in my head, and she still didn't move. At that time, I prayed, but I didn't know what I was praying for because she was my first child. And so later that night, when her dad got home, we finally were like, you know what, let's go to the hospital. I called the midwife. She's like, you need to come in. Let's just make sure that everything's okay. And we get in. I could still like smell the smells and remember all the people in the hallway. Like, I don't understand how these moments are so defined when I didn't even know what was going on. We get in and they do the Doppler. They thought they found her heartbeat, but it was actually mine. And they started pumping me with electrolytes. So I always picture like blue Gatorade going through my veins, which is so weird. But they started prepping me for surgery because they're like, we found it, And when you have a midwife and it's something drastic like this, you have to. An OB comes in. So they called in an OB, and they broke my water when they were checking. They put a monitor in her head and still wasn't getting, what they needed. And so I remember them rushing me down the hallway, and I was just naked because it was such an emergency. And I guess it didn't even really realize what was fixing to come. And so I get into the OR, cold, very white, very, very cold. And they're strapping me down, taking everything off. And the OB was like, hey, I'm Dr. Redmond. And, you don't know me, but I'm going to take care of you and your baby. And I said, okay. And He goes, but I want to do an ultrasound one more time. I said, okay. He did an ultrasound. And if you've never had an ultrasound with the baby who is gone, it is the most quietest ultrasound in the entire world. Like, there's no nothing. And he did the ultrasound, and I knew instantly. And I was 21, and I didn't know babies died. I didn't know that they did that. He told me, he looked at me and he said, listen, you don't know me, but I have to tell you that your baby's gone. And I was like, what? And he was like, she's passed. And I was like, no, that doesn't happen. And he's like, unfortunately, it does. He goes, this is what's going to happen. You're going to go in that room and you're going to birth that baby. And it's going to be one of the most significant moments in your entire life. And I said, no, I'm not. And I said, I want you to do a C-section, and I want you to give me a hysterectomy. I'm not doing this again. I can't. And in my mind, I thought that if I had a hysterectomy and a C-section, that it wouldn't hurt, like I wouldn't, it wouldn't be as bad as having to birth her, because I knew that having to birth her, I'd be connected. Not that C-section is not giving birth, but in my mind, it was just a very defining moment. And he, of course, looked at me as I'm 21 years old and have no other children. He said, I won't do that. I can't do that. And I will not. I said, but it's my choice. And he's like, no, it's not. I said, okay. And to this day, I'm so grateful, because I wouldn't have my other children. And man, if fear and everything would have controlled my life, I wouldn't have had them. And so he was like, it's going to be good. And this really going to change your life. And man, did it. They told me that if my water wasn't broken, I could go home and, labor at home and then come back when it was time. And we get into the room and they're like, no, your water's broken and you're very, very dilated now. I'm in pain and physical, birthing pain. And they come in and hand me all of these papers, and I have to start signing stuff for a funeral home and for them to take her after. They're like all of these crazy things that you never think that are going to happen. And I remember being so mad, and I just shoved all the papers, and I was like, I can't do that. Like, I don't even know what's happening. At that point, I called my mom, and they lived in DFW, and I told her, I said, listen, I said, I don't want y'all to come down. I said, there's no reason to. She's gone. And she's like, what do you mean? And I said, Mom, she's gone. And they're like you lost her? And I was like, no, like she's gone. Like, I couldn't even say that she was dead. Out of all the labors I had, hers was the most beautiful and the most calming and the most still, which is kind of ironic, because when you have a baby at 41 and a half weeks, it's called stillbirth, and it was so still, and everybody was so sweet and so kind. Talking about nurses, like they cried with me. They labored with me, like they were in pain. But one of the most significant parts of the whole thing was that there was another mom in the other room. And at this certain hospital, if a mom is going through a miscarriage or stillbirth or anything, they put a little flower on the door to know, like, hey, this is a sensitive situation. Well, I remember walking by and asking them what that meant, and they told me. And I remember just in my own pain, I wasn't there sad for myself. I was sad for her. And I was sad that she had to go through it too. And I kept telling them, please just tell her, like, I know what it feels like. And I know what you're going through, and that you're not alone. Like, I'm right next door. It was hard. So then after this beautiful birth that I had with her, my family came down, my mom and my cousin, my whole family actually came down. And even though I told them not to, I love them for that though. They came down, and we all experienced this together. And it was really time to push. And all the smells and everything, I can feel it. Mm-hmm. And she came out sunny side up, which I always think is kind of cool. and only a couple pushes. And I will share this. I did not tear, which is amazing.
Beautiful. We love that.
She was 9 pounds, 12 ounces.
9 pounds, 12 ounces.
Yeah. 9 pounds,
Said
12
she was
ounces.
a big baby. Wow.
Yes. And she was 22 and a half inches long. She was born at 4:10 on February 6th, 2013. So next year, in February, she would be 13, which is wild to think that it's been 13 years and it's taken me this long to really heal from it.
That's not wild at all.
Sometimes it feels wild. She, I got to hold her. I had a birth photographer there, and I have all of these pictures of her and everything. And those pictures sometimes are the most rewarding thing, because I remember a lot of the bad, and the good was holding her. And I have one picture where I'm actually smiling in it. And I remember that I have another picture of her, like when they first placed her on my chest, and I'm like screaming because I know that she's not breathing. And she also, since she was in my uterus for over 24 hours and then passed away, she had a lot of her skin was like coming off, which I didn't know that happened either. They said that she was waterlogged is what it is. Her nails were so long. Oh my gosh, her nails were so long. And I remember them just telling me, you nurtured her so well. Like, you gave her the right nutrients she needed. Like, she was so healthy, and all of these things. And I remember in the moment being so mad at God, because I was like, I don't understand. What did I do to deserve this? Like, what did I do to deserve her being gone? And now I realize that it's nothing I ever did. I saw a lady a couple years ago, and she said that when she had her stillborn baby, that she went through a lot of therapy with it, and that at one point she said that that Jesus had looked at her and said, listen, just as I was sitting there telling God, please I don't want it to be this way, when he was going to die on the cross, he didn't want it that way either. That that Jesus looking at her, holding her baby who was alive in his arms, but dead in her hospital room, that, that's not what he wanted, but he was here. And this is how it had to be. And now, 13 years later, I realize that God made me the best vessel to carry her. And he gave me everything I needed to nurture her and to love her. All she knew was love. Like, I would talk to her and sing to her, and it was the best pregnancy ever. Like, there was nothing wrong. And so the fact that God chose me to carry her is so, like, I'm so grateful and so gracious, because, oh man, it's amazing to know that he chose me. So after that, we had a funeral for her. The city of Waco is absolutely amazing. They paid for her whole funeral.
Wow.
Her whole funeral. They and she was actually cremated, because I knew that we wouldn't be in Waco forever. And she has 2 little baby urns because she was so big. And they paid for both of those. I mean, they had a crib up there for her. They told me, bring whatever you want. I would rock her. I don't know. Some people, they have a hard time with that. But when it's your baby, you don't. And then at her funeral, all of my family, people that I went to high school there, were there. And, I was from DFW, so they came to Waco because of it. And then at the end, we had a balloon release, and that was it. And then I never got to see her again. So
how did you walk through the following pregnancies after that? Were they anxious? I mean, how did you get your mind around being pregnant again after that?
With Sloan, who is 11 now, they're 16 months apart. I cried every single day. Terrified. I went in multiple times during the pregnancy, because just the fear of him being gone, of losing him, because I already knew what it was. I was working at the time, so that probably helped a lot because I couldn't just sit there being scared, But again, and I thought that his umbilical cord was going to be the issue with Aria. She had a blood clot in her umbilical cord and it hemorrhaged. And now knowing that if that would have hemorrhaged while I was in birth with her, it could have killed both of us. And so God knew what he was doing. I don't know why he spared my life and not hers, but obviously for me to raise 3 other children. So I'm grateful for that. But Sloan's pregnancy was good too. I mean, it was great. And he was a boy, and I was excited and terrified at the same time. And when I went to have him, in the midst of it, I just prepared myself that he was already gone because I thought that would be easier. But he wasn't. He came out 37 weeks and he was 8 pounds, 3 ounces.
Golly.
I know.
You have big babies.
I do. And he was also sunny side up. Yes, I do have big babies. And so but his umbilical cord was literally like 6 inches long. Like I couldn't even give him to me because
he didn't reach.
Yes. And so the umbilical cord was not an issue. But his birth was really healing. And then he had jaundice, and I remember they tried to they're like, we're taking him. I was like, oh no, if you're taking him, you're taking me. Like, we're not doing this. So they let me take him home with a little tandem bed. And then years later, we decided that it was time to try again. And I was hoping for a girl, and I finally got her. And Charlie is 7.5, almost 8. And her pregnancy was way harder because she was a girl. I did a lot of therapy during hers because I felt scared that it was going to happen again. And her pregnancy was great. I gained a lot more weight again. I'd lost 60 pounds and gained way more while pregnant with her. And hers was really refreshing. And then she was born at 37 weeks too. She was 7 pounds, 3 ounces. And hers was just so healing and so precious because I finally had my sweet girl, and I had a little blanket made for her that said, God knew my heart needed you. And that was special. But during Charlie's birth, I have who will be 23 next week, stepdaughter. But she is not my stepdaughter. She is my daughter. She looks just like me, and it's wild. But
God knew you needed her too.
Yeah, God did. Yeah, he did. She'll be 23 next week. And she was 15 at the time, and she was in the room when her sister was born. And the bond that Lily and I have is like no other. She's been through a lot with me. She was 11 when Aria died, and she had no idea. She had so many questions, and she hurt so bad from it. And so her being in the room when Charlie was born was beneficial to her at 15 and
really redemptive. I imagine.
Yes. She loved on me the whole time. And she got to cut Charlie's umbilical cord. Like it was such a beautiful moment. And now she is pregnant at 23. And she's having a little girl.
Oh.
And I'm going to be a grandmother at 36, which is wild.
But tell them your grandmother name.
Okay. My grandmother name is Sassy.
Yeah.
And I'm so excited. And my husband's
It's the 36-year-old grandmother
vibe. Yes. And my husband's grandfather name is Biggie. So she got a shirt that says, pack my bags, I'm going to Sassy and Biggie's house. And I was like, yeah. Yes.
Oh, that's good.
So there's been so much hope and so much good that has come out of Aria's birth. And it's so sad, but it's also so amazing. And she changed me. She changed it wasn't her, it was God changed my heart at the mom that I wanted to be. And my childhood was hard and rough and not the best. And my mom was a first-time mom, and she did what she could. but I knew that I didn't want to be that way. And so after I had Aria, God changed my heart, and he changed the direction of the mom that I could have been. And I'm so glad that I don't know who that mom is, because I'm so grateful for the mom that I am today.
Now, tell us about Rooster and how he's your little baby.
He is my baby. He will be my last baby. So Rooster's pregnancy was wild. Man, wild.
He's a wild child. It fits.
Oh my goodness. Yes, he is wild. My husband and I, Grant is 40. Well, he's 41 now. Grant had no children. I came into our marriage with a 22-year-old and, 2 others and a whole life story. Some call it baggage, but it's not baggage. It's good life lived. And so Grant had no children and never thought that he would until he met me. And we got pregnant, and then I had a miscarriage at 8 weeks, and then we got pregnant again, and it was a little boy, and we lost him at 20 weeks in the height of COVID. It was Grant's first time to go to any doctor's appointment because it was COVID and you couldn't. Mm-hmm. And he got to go, and I already, they came in and they're like, we're going to do an ultrasound after they did the Doppler. And I was like, we're not supposed to do an ultrasound. And I already knew. And they did the ultrasound. And once again, it was quiet. It was silent. And I'm in tears, and Grant has no idea what's going on. And so that was hard. And a couple days later, I had to have a D&C, and I had to give birth. And also they said that I had tested positive for COVID. It was such a wild ride, a weird thing. And then we had a little boy who was 0.8 ounces and tiny. I have a picture of his little hand just on my little pointer finger, and it was so little and so precious. And you could tell that he was a boy, and I don't know, it was really cool, but I was really out of it. But I remember every time I woke up, Grant was sitting there just in tears, just holding his first little boy, and it always reminds me of, there's a story in the Bible, and it's slipping my mind right now, but giving up your firstborn, your firstborn son. And I had to, it was my firstborn daughter. I had to give her up, and then Grant had to, and I felt bad because I felt like something was wrong with me, that it was my fault. And so, finally, a couple years later, we got pregnant with Rooster, and I couldn't believe it. I mean, obviously, I know how it happens, but I was like, "What is going on?"
You got enough children to know that one.
Yes. I was like, "What is going on?" And so, we got pregnant with Rooster. My grandmother was still alive at the point, and we were fixing to find out if it was a girl or a boy, and I called my grandmother, and I was like, Nana, if it's a girl, I'm naming her Sutton K. Watson. And my grandmother's middle name was Kay. And old school, they want you to name them after. And Kay is what is going on? I'm so sorry if you have the middle name Kay, but it's not
just wasn't your vibe.
It was not my vibe. And so, but I told my Nana Sutton K, because it went so good together. And I was like, oh, I'll get to call her Sutton Button, all the things.
You had it in your head.
I had it in my head that it was a girl. And then Grant that day was like, if it's a boy, we're naming it Rooster. And I was like, what? And he was like, if it's a boy, we're naming it Rooster. And I was like, why? And he was like, well, as an adult moving out of my parents' house, his dad raised roosters, and he always wanted, if you raise so many roosters, you get a name. You get to name a rooster is pretty much what it is. So it'd be like Rooster Watson, who my kid is. And so his dad got to 4, he had 4, and it was and it has to be 7. And Grant's dad was so upset, he was so excited to have this rooster named after his family, because Grant had no children. And so, finally Grant was like, so if it's a boy, my dad's getting his rooster. And I was like, okay, I'll take that bet. Man, was I wrong. The next day when that thing said, "It's a boy," I cried and I was like, oh my, what am I going to do? And my husband.
Yeah.
You have to.
He's not letting you take that back.
No, not at all. And so his name is Kaysen Rooster Watson. So he is still named after my grandmother, Kaysen, Kayson, and then Rooster. But if I could go back, I probably would change his first name to Rooster, because that's who he is. That boy is wild and crazy and so full of life.
And I wish we could attach the Halloween picture of him in a rooster costume.
Yes.
I think it's my favorite picture ever. He's so cute.
Right now, if he hears a rooster, he goes, me, because he knows that that's his name. And it's so cute.
I love watching kids find out their name and just figuring it out. What a season.
Yes.
Oh, it's so cute. Well, I love hearing how the Lord has carried you through each of these pregnancies in different seasons, in different levels of relationship with him, and just how he has pursued you in each of these in different ways and been what you need. And it's just so cool hearing from that. You mentioned with Aria, the scripture that really carried you was Exodus 14:14. Did that carry you through all of them? Were there other scriptures that really you held on to during these times?
There was. Actually, if you are in the building, there's the old bell tower outside by one of the playgrounds. And it's Jeremiah 29:11. After I had Aria, I had posted, on Facebook that I'd lost her. And, people that you don't even, that are just acquaintances, they just start, coming out. And they did. And they said Jeremiah 29:11 they sent it to me all the time. And now I see it everywhere. And the other day, like 2 weeks ago, I saw it on the bell tower, and I even took a picture of it because I was like, oh, there she is. And, but I really didn't realize until recently that verse wasn't for her. And it wasn't her purpose and her plan for her life, that God was giving it to me. That this is your purpose and this is your plan that I have for your life, Stevie. And although you don't understand it right now, down the road you will. And so I held on to that verse a lot, and it really comforted me a lot. But as healing has happened and stuff, I realized that he already knew Aria's, plan. And man, her plan is great. She's up there, and she's with him, and she doesn't have any pain or any suffering, and no little stinky boy will ever hurt her heart. Like, how amazing is that? And that verse wasn't meant for her, that it was meant for me. And I remember reading Jeremiah and thinking like, oh, these people, like, he's telling you he has a purpose and a plan. And this whole time for 13 years, he's been telling me I have a purpose and plan for you, Stevie. And why am I trying to stand in the way of it? And so, Jeremiah 29:11 and 12 and 13 is amazing. And it is one that I really cherish. Actually, it's one that my whole family has cherished. And because, this was the first time they had ever gone through something so drastic. And so I have it on everything, literally.
That's good. Yeah. Well, as we wrap up, do you have any encouragement that you would share to moms walking through a similar season?
I do. Back in the day, I actually had a storefront in my hometown, and it was named Aria Grace. And there I got to touch and speak to so many women who have never even told people that they have lost. And as a woman who gave birth to a 9-pound, 12-ounce baby and had to hold her while she wasn't breathing, it hurts so bad to know that they're alone. And I too have gone through the season of feeling like it's my fault. My body's not working. I'm doing something wrong. I shouldn't have done that. The guilt and the shame. And I will tell you that, man, the Lord will set you free, because it's not. There's no guilt or shame. Your body, there's nothing wrong with your body. Things happen. And although we don't understand them, here on earth. I'm telling you, when you get to heaven, you will. And it's so encouraging and relieving when you tell your story, because I was 21 years old and had no idea that babies died. I didn't know that I could hold my baby for 24 hours. I didn't know that I could, take pictures of her, or that I could go to the funeral home and hold her and have that comfort. And there are things that I wish I would have known, Mm-hmm. And so I think telling your story and really getting it out there is amazing. And I know that we talked about this, the day that it's coming out is October 15th. And it is the Wave of Light in America. And I think it was President Eisenhower made it the official date for stillborn, miscarriage, and infant loss day. And that night you just light a candle for each of your babies or for somebody else that you know, because the thing about losing a baby is it's not just you. Like, your whole family hurts with it. And it's hard to understand. And even now with Aria being 13, my kids, they know who she is. We have pictures all over. We celebrate her birthday every year. I've always told Grant, when she would turn 16, I'm buying a new car. Like, when she would supposed to be graduating high school, I'm going to somebody's graduation. Like, we're doing this because I don't have to live in the guilt and the shame. God didn't call me to do that. He called me to talk about her and to say her name. And so I will.
Oh, that's sweet. That's really sweet. Stevie, thank you for sharing your story with us. I know it's not easy, but I think that's very important.
Yes.
We have 2 questions that we ask every guest that's on the podcast. What is something you're learning, and what is something you're loving?
Something I'm learning is, that's a good question, actually. Something I'm learning right now is to slow down and have quality time with my family, and to really love them. Because I think that in this world of chaos and running, that's very important. And my kids are growing so fast. I cannot stand when people say you only have 18 summers, but it is true. And you only have a very short time with them. And so really spending time with them, but also knowing who they are. And then what was the other question? I already forgot.
Something you're loving.
Something I'm loving. Oh, okay. This is probably cliche. I am loving women's ministry here. I love it so much. And I am so grateful that God has given me this opportunity. You have become one of my bestest friends in the entire world. We have conversations upon conversations, and getting to work with Novalee, even though she's 22 and I'm way older. It's so much fun. And I'm surrounded by community, and I'm surrounded by people who want to pour into me. And growing up, not having that, it's so refreshing. Mm-hmm. It's so refreshing.
So if you've been holding out on women's ministry and getting involved, consider this your invitation.
It is your invitation, because I will hug. Oh man, it is so much fun. And I'll talk to everybody. I could talk to a wall. Like, if you need somebody to talk to, come on. Yeah. I'm there.
Yeah.
I love it.
Oh, good. Yeah. Well, Stevie, thanks for being here today.
Of course.
Thanks for listening to the Equip Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to be the first to know when a new episode drops. And follow us on social media to stay connected. We're at GABC_women. See you next time.